all set up over there. Jason fucking Scoop.
What up, Sean?
Dude, this is the pure definition of a dude that finds you online, a huge fucking fan of yours, and I love seeing you just like cultivate a career in comedy.
I appreciate it so much, man. And I've had my what would be the word, hardships, because they threw me off of TikTok, but now I'm back on.
Did
Yeah,
they threw you off?
my original TikTok, they threw me off. I got the boot.
What?
Uh, yeah,
Did
but
they tell you why, or they
well, that's
just
whole. I could go on for about an hour about that. Basically, they just said it was because of content violations,
oh
but they
boy.
didn't give you much recourse to fight it. So I sent them several emails, and like 2 months later, they sent me an email back, and they were like, "Yeah, sorry." They said it was yeah, they just said like multiple content violations, and then but now I'm back, and I'm just you just have to be really careful with TikTok. You have to really color within the lines, but that's okay because I building up my Instagram, YouTube now. I'm doing YouTube. I just
Yeah,
started
saw that.
Donald J. Trump podcast, and I think to me, I don't know. I think I'm really onto something with that because I feel like YouTube, I feel like TikTok, I love TikTok. It's put a lot of money in my pocket. Instagram has put a lot of money in my pocket. But I feel like both of those things are kind of like the Kindle to get the real fire started.
Right,
Like YouTube is a real log.
right.
You know? Yeah.
Well,
So,
that's what's up, man. I appreciate you taking the time for today too, because for those that don't know, and at some point, so we're not live, but at some point I'm changing up my rhythm as well, just
okay.
because of this random nuances that I'm dealing with social media and this and that. So right now, we're going to use this to capture the data, and
Sure.
then I'll post it at a later point. But so I found you naturally on TikTok.
Uh-huh.
Started following you. You are fucking hilarious with your impersonations. One of my favorites is don't you do Sebastian too? You do Sebastian. You
Oh,
do,
yeah.
yeah, I fucking love it. I mean, I've heard actually, and then didn't Jim Brewer give you a shout out for doing Chris Rock?
He did. Yeah. He
That's,
specifically mentioned Rock and Maniscalco. And obviously that was really, really cool.
I can't imagine because that's a god in himself. And I love his stance in life too, man. I love how, and I think that's I think all of us as we're adulting, we're being more and more attracted to people that are just real.
Oh,
That's why I know I even love your shit, but I was watching some of your older stuff. And one of the things I like to do, and the purpose of my show is almost get to know someone as if whether someone's listening or not. And
yeah.
is what you said in that skit back in the day was like 2018 or so, and you were you were in a real theater and you were fucking hilarious, and you were talking about your background being Trinidad Tobago and your dad being Polish, etc. Is that actually? You never know if comedy,
Yeah, no, that's 100% accurate. My mom's
nice.
Trinidad, and my dad is Polish.
Okay.
And yeah, so it's a very, I guess, sort of unique. You don't
Unique mix.
too many people who are. I mean, the two. I mean, the most opposite cultures that I could possibly think. You know what I mean? Like, and it's also
Right.
in terms of like interracial. Like everybody,
Right.
the main like black, white guy.
Right.
But Trinidad is multiple races, like my
Yeah.
mom mixed, she's like, if you look at her, she looks kind of like Indian, but she's like Indian and black and white. There's white in there too. And then my
Right.
dad is basically like I dyed my hair blonde. My dad's hair is naturally blonde. He's got blue eyes. It's just a whole different,
So
uh,
what's like your story, if you don't mind me asking? Because you're in New York now, right? That's home.
yes.
Has that been home your whole life, or did you like? What's your story?
Well, I grew up in Long Island, born in
Okay.
Long Island. I lived in the city for years. I'm currently back home in Long Island, but I'm very close to the city. I'm a 40
Okay.
minute city. I'm in New York City all the time. And basically, long story short, here's my story. I got into stand up many, many years ago. I started in open mics, was kind of shy. I mean, I'm very outgoing, especially now. But at the time, like I would come into the city and I would literally pay for the train fare, pay $5 to, order a drink and sign up. And then I would go up And at first I would bomb and bomb and bomb, but then I figured out like 5 or 6 jokes that were great. But the thing is, I would do amazing. And people who are literally doing the White House Correspondents' Dinner now and on Comedy and with Amy Schumer on tour with Louis C.K., they were coming up to me, dude, that was great. But then I'd be shy and I would just leave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, comedy is a social thing too. So then I kept going to comedy, and I started to intern at Broadway Comedy Club, and then I would get
Okay.
check spots, which is like the shittier spot because the audience is getting the checks, but you go up, and that's kind of how you kind of come up and stand up. And then I started to get booked at other things, and I was doing stand up for years and years and years, and I would open for Jeff Ross, the roast master. I opened for Michael
Nice.
Che from Saturday Night Live, Melissa Villasenor for Saturday Night Live. I did a bunch of MTV pilots. I got on a impersonation contest show with Dana Carvey. That was another huge blessing. I went out there in LA. I won $10,000, but I wasn't really active on the internet. Then the
Right.
pandemic, and I get on TikTok, and then TikTok, that was my original TikTok, and then I started to. I mean, it was just an avalanche of people would hit me up. Hey, can you do? My dad's turning 50. He loves your videos. He loves Trump, or he loves Chris Rock, or he loves whoever.
Right.
Can I just pay you some money to do an impression? So I'd be like, yeah, we worked out a deal. And the next thing you know, that just became like an avalanche. And then, the live gigs. I got a voiceover gig at the Super Bowl as Chris Rock.
Wow. Okay.
Rocket Mortgage, Quicken Loans wanted to hire Chris Rock, but they wanted to put together a package. Chris, this is exactly what it's going to look like. So they animated it, and they had me imitating his voice. And boy, that voiceover work, I mean, Jesus, is it lucrative. And
Wow.
that, and all these unique live gigs, and then more and more live gigs. And so right now, where I'm at now is I'm finally, after 10 years of, doing very well just in New York, but not
Right.
really. I've done television, but the internet is such a fertile ground for gaining new fans like this. That's how I met you. I'm
Right.
here with, I'm making more money than I ever did doing spots around New York City, even on the road opening for people. You don't make that much, like I
Right.
opened for Don Collins, Chappelle's opener. I did Thursday show, 2 shows Friday night, 2 shows Saturday night, 1 show Sunday. I think I made $600, and the club made what, like 50,000. And I'm not saying, God, do I love.
I know. I hear you.
But I'm working now really, really, really hard, and especially with the YouTube, writing it and editing it and doing everything that I can to gain fans and gain fans and gain fans. And then I'm living off live gigs here and there, but also the cameo money. But I'm building there's so much more. There's so much more, and I'm doing
Right.
the now. But I want to do I want to do something with all the characters, and I just want to build everything together. But I'm working my butt off, and things are going really well. So I'm really super thankful.
Bro, I could fucking taste your fucking tenacity and your hunger and your drive. And bro, move a little bit to the center. You're like cut off. You're like half. There he is. There's that beautiful man. All right. Yeah, there you go.
Awesome.
But bro, your fucking energy. So how old were you when you got into the game? Because you're not like, how old
No.
are you?
I'm not a spring chicken. Well, I'm 30 years old. Thankfully, I look very young, and I feel very, very young. But stand-up was sort of a slow process, because when I speak from the first open mic to when I started opening for, Michael Che and Melissa Villasenor, that was the first several years. Like I said, I would just go into the city, pay the
Right.
fine, drink the drink, but then I was shot. Then
So what were you? You were like 20 at the time.
this goes back to even 18, and then like
Golly.
20, 21, 22. When I was like 22, that's when I really started to kind of rise up and be known in New York. And then it just went from there. But things really started to pop off for me like early 2021, 2020.
But I have such a fascination towards comedians in general, and seeing behind the scenes and the hardships and I mean, from what I hear, everything from the Rogans to the Theo Vaughns to the Dave Chappelles to the Jerry Seinfelds. I mean, the list goes on, to the greats. When you actually see them behind the scenes and you listen to them on a long format podcast, they share with you kind of how fucked up they are in a good way. Not that not any of us aren't, but kind of the sleepless nights. I mean, really, comedy's a release from reality, right? Like you're breaking, and here you are as a performer, and you've got to have. And I mean, some of this is so. It's to you, it's simple science, but to those that don't know, and because it's so fascinating to me, you got to have fucking balls, man, because you would you say right now, have you the when people talk about bombing and stuff like that, have you had that feeling? I can't imagine. You know, we all have the nightmares of going to school naked, or the, you know, like of not feeling well loved and pursued, whether in companionship or fucking, let alone career wise. But to be on a stage, whether there's one or 10 or 200, I it's got to be such a unique dynamic to be able to overcome that, to go, fuck this, I'm not doing this again, right?
Sure.
Do you
Well,
like
I would say, luckily, anytime that, because gosh, I got to really think back now. Okay,
you're cutting yourself off again? Why you keep go
oh,
move it? Come on, see,
okay,
there he is. There he is.
okay, I'm gonna try to stay right. Okay, so yeah, I would say when I first started doing open mics, if I got like one or two giggles, I would walk away thinking like, man, I crushed it. And then I actually got good. I got 5 good jokes in a row, and there was, wow, that's an actual great set.
Right.
So then doing great, but then I remember the worst bomb that I could ever recall was I discovered like the black shows in New York, and I would get booked up in Harlem and up in the Bronx,
Yes.
other these black rooms, and I would go up there and they would love my stuff and I would destroy, and I guess I got a little too cocky, maybe a little
Ooh.
overly confident, and then I did
Okay.
a black room in like the Brooklyn somewhere in like East New York, and they weren't feeling it, and it was the same exact set that had the night before up in the Bronx had crushed, and just, ooh, that was painful. That was painful. I think there was a dude in the front row. He's like, yo, they're hiring at UPS. He's like, UPS is taking applications. And that just crushed me. And
Right.
at the time, I was more new, so I didn't have the chops of like dealing with hecklers. Now,
Right.
I'm seasoned. If somebody heckles, I have, I just cover
Right.
my, but at the time, I was such a young,
Oh,
you know,
dude, I don't care how. I mean, in my opinion, young or old, I donate some of my time on the weekends and I ref these young kids for soccer. My whole life is encompassed around soccer. I get heckled. I fucking have to. It's so hard not to lose my cool just in
yeah.
that degree. Let alone it's not even my own. Like, it's not my art. It's not my perform. You know what I mean? To be performing, to be heckled. When when you were, how did your story start to kind of become more passion hobby into like, I'm going to try this? Were you support, like, were you in high school? Were you middle school where you're like, hey, Jason's a fucking, you're hilarious? Were you
Yeah.
self-proclaimed funny? Like, where, how did you start to think?
I always was the funny guy, the class clown, and I
Okay.
impressions. That's kind of how it started. And what's funny is, so I'll never forget. It's like pivotal moments in your life. I was doing accents. I
Okay.
did impressions, but I was doing accents, and I would do like the Indian accent, British accent, everything. And then I was in the drama club, 6th grade. We were Fiddler on the Roof, and there was a girl who was a year older. Rachel Weiner was her name. And Rachel Weiner also did accents.
Okay.
So here I am. I'm like probably 10 or 11 years old. And I'll never forget just looking at Rachel, the attention she was getting. And I'm like, what is this? I thought I was the only kid that could do accents.
Right.
Girl, Rachel's doing the freaking accents? Then I started, and that was a pivot, and I started leaning more into impressions because nobody else could do impressions. And then as my voice started to change a little bit, I'd be 11, 12, by 13, I was getting really good. Teachers would stop before class. She'd be like, all right, I'm going to start teaching, but can you, and what's so funny is because Trump has become such a big part of my comedy lexicon.
Right.
I remember it was social studies, 7th grade, Miss Galeno. The Apprentice had just come out. Everybody was watching The Apprentice. This is
Yep.
when everyone watched must-see TV,
Yep. Yep.
before streaming, and everybody was watching. Oh my God, you're fired, right? So she was like, Jason, before I start teaching, can you do your Trump? And, back then it was nowhere near where it is now, but I'm
Right.
like, you're fired. And I'm like, just silliness. And then I discovered the show Seinfeld, and
Yes.
because I watched stand-up before, but Seinfeld I was like, look at him doing stand-up. He's on network TV. And that's what made me want to be a comedian. So I looked at it like,
Wow.
once I graduate, I looked at it like a job. I'm like, once I graduate high school, then I'm going to get into stand-up comedy. I didn't really know what that entailed, but I knew I
Right.
was going.
Now, were you immediately kind of like supported amongst your immediate friends and family and your support system, or was it the typical, what the fuck you doing? Go get a job?
Everybody support. Well, all my friends supported it.
Okay.
And luckily, my mother, through thick and thin, up and down, has always believed in me. And now she's, her and my dad was kind of on the side. My dad's an immigrant. I mean, my mom's technically an immigrant, but she was
Right.
born back there than so she's way more Americanized. My dad is like immigrant. You know what I mean? Like penny pinching and like you got to do this and that. So he was
Yeah.
more wasn't vocal like I don't believe, but he was kind of like I could just tell.
Right.
And
Right.
like what the hell are you doing?
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
So,
and now at 30, which is amazing because I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you're still young.
yeah,
Are you fully independent, relying on your career right now, like of what your?
more day job. I don't want to give away exact facts
No,
and
no,
figures,
no. That's your business. I'm just saying, but that's
but I'm very, very, very blessed to now be fully getting by off comedy, and
dude.
it's not easy to do. But
No,
I
and I mean this because a lot of people say this or they can type it and like it can come off so superficial. But man, I mean this. Being someone that's been on my own for 20 plus years, and the I don't want to call it a struggle, but more of that. I use the analogy of kind of like swimming in the ocean. It's one of my favorite things to do, and it's like you should never get comfortable in it anyways. You should always be alert. You should try to
oh
stay buoyant, be aware of what's going on, and those rogue waves trying to fuck you up. I'm proud of you, man. It's and not only are you doing it on your own, but you're like everyone's grass always seems to be greener. And my immediate nucleus crew of friends, family, and locals are like, must be nice. You just podcast and you internet all day, and I'm like, well, it must be nice to do it. Like so. In my opinion, I know that what I can't imagine the hardships of once again. I see you. You're hitting the fucking pavement now, hard, right? I see you really, I follow you, and it's like it seems to be you're doing a lot more street performing to get that real live shock, that real life, because you were just in that, what was that, the fair you went to, the something,
the San Gennaro.
that was hilarious. And do you see when you do, for those that are listening that don't know, it was a fair that you did. Now that was local to your area?
That was just right there in the city. That was Little Italy in Manhattan.
Perfect. Now, when you're doing something like that, do you have like a little crew now? Do you have a guy that's like your camera guy, or like how do you? I love the behind the scenes.
That's a great question. My camera guy started out as a fan. He just followed me on Instagram, and then one day, to be honest, I can't even remember exactly how we met, but I just remember one day he was like, "Oh, I could film you." And then he just became my camera guy.
That's awesome.
And I say to myself, because sometimes I can get annoyed. Like when it comes to the execution, I'm fixated on an idea. Like for instance, he works at a restaurant, my camera guy, Steve. And I met with him the other day, and the plan was to leave at 5 p.m. to get to the festival to film. The guy who was supposed to come in and take over his place, he was an hour and a half late. And I was
jeez.
doing, but then I realized, Jason, wait a minute. This guy is doing this for you because he believes in you, and he's never asked for a single dime. He's just believes in you. Kind of like that Kanye documentary, how that guy was a comic. He gave up his comedian career to follow Kanye around because he believed in Kanye. And I said, instead of lashing out, and once again, it's because I'm so fixated. I have a mission. I said, I sat there and I was like, no, it's all good, Steve. So Steve got off of work, and I wanted to hop on the subway to get there as fast as possible. But Steve is an avid bicycle rider. He has his electric bike, and then so I got a city bike, and he's like, no, dude, I work all day. He's like, the highlight of my day is being able to ride the bicycle. So I said, okay. So I rode the bicycle. Long story short, the footage we got at San Gennaro is some of the best footage ever. And he insisted. I said, I want to just go to a certain point, put on the wig. He said, no, put on the wig and walk through the festival. So I listened to him, and I thought, the joy on the people's faces, we encountered just the right people at the right time. And in hindsight, I was thinking, if I had gotten mad at Steve, insisted, no, I want to take the train, I want to get there now. Or if I had lashed out and tried to speed him out of the restaurant, I wouldn't have found those exact people and gotten such truly beautiful footage.
Right.
Beautiful. I'm not just saying my performance, the reaction of the
No,
people,
I
man.
know. That's the priceless. You can't fake that. You can't.
No.
You can. That's what I think's resonating with your audience, because I'm one of them, and what I seem to be, even though when I fell in love with your content, it wasn't as much street performing, was it your impersonations and your fucking electric. But seeing their reactions, it's at the fucking handshake, the jerk, the whole thing is like, it just works. But once again, as we're adulting and we're losing that childish, whimsical feeling, like a kid could do that no problem. You tell a
Yeah.
kid, go run around and make pretend you're a unicorn, they're going to do it. Tell
Yeah.
an adult to do it. It takes fucking balls, man, because I'm sure you once again, you've got to be out of your comfort zone. There's nothing comfortable about that. And I'm, and
Thousand.
I,
Yeah. I walking into it. That's why I wanted to go to a certain part, stand there, and put on
right.
the wig. Oh, walk through the crowd. So I was like, I don't know, but I listened to him once again.
Well, kudos to you too, because that opens up a whole nother fucking rabbit hole of just, irregardless of what profession, career, or wherever people are, it's being comfortable with, it's okay not to be okay. All these cliche things, for instance, being where you want to be, not have to be, and
Yeah.
to be comfortable under uncomfortable circumstances, and to slow yourself down. Because I think we're probably similar in the case, like even today, I had a little bit of a grump because I wanted it to, not with you, my own shit. My shit wasn't working at first. And I'm like, motherfucker. And it was like first thing in the morning, and I get so mad, and I'm like, yo, chill the fuck out. I'm about to
Yeah.
go on, I'm about to have a podcast with this fucking hilarious guy with no script, with no ceiling. There's no, it's okay. And
Yeah.
I'm glad, it makes me even happier to know that you've got someone in your crew that's a supporter of you, because it's almost better than paying. So I'm sure at some point, if you're not already, you will be compensating him. But to
Yeah.
have someone that believes in you is like, it's another thing that's priceless in this adulting game. Is 80% don't care and 20% are glad it isn't them. So I'm glad that in it, as you continue to cultivate this career and lifestyle. Now, when you're doing that, I used to go to the city a lot, like 3-4 times a year, and it scares the shit out of me. To this day, can't get around. I know it's a grid system, yada yada yada. I get to Square Union. I fucking put my head down and I'm texting my buddy, where the fuck am I going? But I come from a small town with like 1,000 permanent residents, and I've been here my whole life. So when you're going to those types of settings, do you need permits? Do you need shit like that, or is it kind of, as long as you're
No.
not fucking smacking people, you're good?
Yeah. You're not smacking people or breaking the law. You're fine.
Okay.
Filming with the camera. If you're doing something on a grander scale, like you're working on a short film or something, or maybe even
Right.
a larger YouTube production, then you'll probably need a permit. But we've never been hassled by law enforcement or anything filming, and I don't have a problem with crowds or the city. I'm a city guy at heart.
Right.
I've loved New York. I love the energy. I love. I've been all around the country, and there's no place like New York. And I'm not saying any place is better than the other, because boy, is there untapped beauty all over the place.
Yes.
50 states, every nook and cranny. There's some incredible stuff, whether it's a restaurant or a bar, a nightclub. There's beauty all around. But I'd say there's no place else like the energy and ambition and the hustle and the grind that people have in New York. It's just like explosive.
It's very complimentary to your personality, and I'm glad that it's conducive for you. One of the things too, when you were doing the subway scenes, the most recent ones, who's that little short guy kind of like walking around with you with the hat? Is that just a?
That's Pepino.
Okay.
I met Pepino years ago. Pepino was kind of a bar hound. He would always be hanging out at a specific comedy venue in New York called the Grizzly Pear.
Okay.
And they're drinking. But Pepino, he was just a guy at the bar. But he himself always had aspirations to do comedy himself.
Okay.
And he would get up every now and then. He'd sign up for open mics. But I always saw that everybody loves Pepino. Everybody knows Pepino by name, whether it's the comics, the bar patrons, the guys behind the bar, the people who own the place. He walks down the street, everybody knows him. And I say, Pepino has some star quality. There's something about him that's just entertaining. So, and I knew that he himself had aspirations to do comedy. He had produced comedy
Oh,
shows.
wow.
And so he booked me, here and there when he was trying to produce, because he lives in the West Village. He's lucky enough his father lives there and he lives with his dad. And so,
Okay.
and I said, Pepino, I just one day had the idea for the mini Trump. It just came to me.
So that's the okay. It's making sense now. Go ahead.
We were hanging out at Grizzly Pear. I had just done a comedy set, and I came out, and it just hits me. And a lot of my ideas, I don't sit there and go, I'm going to come up with the great idea. A lot of my best ideas just fall out of the sky and smack me right in the head. Like they just come to me from God knows where. Like when I thought about jumping in the East River, Trump being like, we're finding ballots. There's so many folks down there. That idea, I was waiting for and it just poof, it just appeared in my head and was like, oh, I gotta do this. And that's
so now I remember that skit. When you're doing something like that, I'm sure you have to execute like within net 24, 48 hours. You're just like so fucking, you got to do it.
Yeah.
Now, and so now your guy, Steve, it seems like he's dealing with your rodeo brain, right? Like, I got to do this shit. Let's fucking go. And like, because I mean, it's incredible. The one thing that I find so fascinating as being, and I'm by no means anywhere near where I would want to be content wise with the equipment. And I find it fascinating for those that when I see your content and anyone like yours that's hands free, I'm like, how are they? Who's the guy? Who's that other guy? Because whoever it is, the content that's working like yours, I find it to be, and I'm no cinematography, but I love the nuts and bolts, and it's like that's fucking amazing that he's got you. It's symmetrical. He's even key, like,
yeah.
Because you're not. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. You probably don't have, because I don't either. But you don't have like a fascination of cinematography, right? You're making the content.
I don't. Yeah, I don't.
Right.
I mean, film. I've written a screenplay and a half because I'm kind of working on a second one. Right? But I know nothing about film, cinematography, camera work, nothing. Steve has his instincts, and once again, I'm so lucky to have the guy. And once again, I can't even tell you the exact origin. I told you how Pepino started. Me and Steve just started working together, and it's like a married couple.
Right.
We'll have this. He'll say, I think this will be better. I'll think that'll be better. But he's always there when I need him.
Now, how is this? I love you being so candid because it gives me, I feel so gifted that it's like I get to be in the green room with you before you're going live. This team that that's forming naturally, are you guys starting to put like, corpo shit to it? We're like, yo, we meet on Mondays and we write, or are you keeping it?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I'll be jotting down ideas, and Steve will also come up with ideas. If not ideas, locations, maybe.
Right.
He's always riding his bicycle. So he's like, I saw this great, cool thing. That would be a cool background. And then we will organize, okay, let's plan to meet tomorrow at this time. Because, if I goes to work here, so we usually meet between 12 and 5. And I also, in terms of the little group, Steve, Pepino, I kind of like like a Rat Pack, like the Jackass guys. You got Steve, Johnny Knoxville, you got Bam. I want my audience to kind of see us as like this little group of friends and cohorts, and and I think that's working because people are kind of like, oh, this guy seems fun, or I'd love to hang out with him. And look, they seem like they have a blast together. So it's my desired goal is coming out where people kind of look at this little ragtag group,
right?
And I think it's a cool thing.
I like how you're branding it because it's also, in my opinion, as I get to talk to you for the first time, but have a fan for a while, is your lifestyle is your content, and you're fucking hilarious in general, and you're animated, and you're just on. I'm sure it's you're not a self-appointed comedian. It's happening by consequence of it's an involuntary movement, and I think by consequence of that, whether it's comedy or, like, for instance, in my case, soccer, I eat, breathe, sleep it. So now by consequence of that, I'm being asked to do shit, and I've got people that admire and want to be around it. It's the best way to cultivate a kind of a tribe, because you're not making them do it. You're not demanding them to do it, but they appreciate you and you appreciate them. And now what's kind of cool is that support system, man, and I'm sure you know this, Jason, but as we're getting older, the support system. I had a podcast yesterday with a guy that was on literally today. He was heading into surgery today, and he was in the hospital room. And he's my age. We grew up together. I've known him for 30 some odd years, and there was no one there. And he's got friends and family in this, but like when push comes to shove and the visiting hours are over, so to speak, either literally or figuratively, you're all alone, you know. And I think it's awesome that you seem to be you're comfortable with who you are, and you're putting out your content. And even though you got the support system, you would be doing it with or without anyone anyways, because this is your dream, this is your passion.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of you for that.
I would
Right.
way. It's like a plant. You find the sunlight, it grows towards the sunlight. And I'm just, even as I'm talking to you, I'm realizing, and I've told myself how thankful I am to have a guy like Steve, but even just, you know, talking about it, you realize again, and I'm like, damn, I really am lucky. Like, look at how this happened.
Yeah.
Really lucky.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm getting the feeling too that this hasn't been this like, I know there's been those fetal positions, blood, sweat, and tears in all aspects, but I don't feel like you have almost been on the brink of giving up 100 times. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, there are times like when I got thrown off TikTok the first time. That was a huge.
Oh, okay, that's true. That's got to be a blow. Well, I can't imagine being deplatformed, and
Yeah.
your followers were, you know, like you're like, what the? Because no one wants to see the. Here's my new account. You're like, fuck it, I don't want to. You know, like follow my. Or it's like someone loses their phone. They're like, here's my new number. You're like, I'm not saving it. Just text me next time. I can imagine that feeling of what the fuck. And correct me if I'm wrong, it seemed like a lot of your exposure, especially during the pandemic, was TikTok. It was a very natural, organic way of skyrocketing you. Wow.
Yes.
And then, so you had like a come to Jesus moment right then and there. You were like almost gave up.
Yeah, I mean, of course, and any human being that will deny that is probably lying. It's like it's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to have this happen and that happen, but you know, I always have that little thing in me, even if for a few days or like a day or two, I'm like, ugh, it comes back. It's like when you put out a fire, but there's still one little smoldering piece, one little, and then enough time, a little gust of wind comes by, a flame will. And until that little thing is completely put out, it'll always grow back up. And that's kind of how I look at my ambition. And, you know, I also just, I love to sort of be a rabble rouser. I love to, I'm trying to figure out exactly how to put this into words.
I mean, I'll say something as you're saying it, because I think it's in parallel with what you're saying. I bet you probably have this, it's currency to your soul to see people happy.
Yes.
It's to some degree. I mean, I'm not trying to brand you as Gandhi, because we all have our woes and shit that were going on, but there's something like, for instance, I get branded sometimes as a Giacomo that I enjoy. I'll miss my next appointment to talk to the guy at the gas station that has no pants on. I just to love on him, with no motive, not to even do anything, but to. And next thing you know, it's been an hour and he's barely made any sense, but he feels good about himself. And for some reason, like you said, I slow down and it could be, I used this analogy yesterday, not that it's about the monetary gain, but you turn around and there's $100 bill on the floor and you're like, wow, I'm glad I stopped. But once again, it's not about finding the money, but there seems to be a lot of, there just seems to be a lot of, it's such a reciprocal thing when you listen or like I've used this the other day, no joke, and I just started saying this in my own immediate private life. If you're hanging out with people that are it's in a habitual nature, whether friends, family, this, that, and the other, and I understand that there's always going to be people out there that are going through shit that aren't happy, but you give yourself a 30-minute to an hour increment with someone, and you're not laughing at some point. What's going on? You know, like life just really isn't that serious. Now I understand there's times to be serious and there's times of grieving, there's times of this and work this, but at the end of the day, if recreationally speaking, you got a lot of people in your life, or even a few, and you're not leaving there with some chuckles in your life, it doesn't seem good to me.
Right.
And I'm not even making that up because I'm on the phone with a comedian. I mean, it just doesn't feel good. And I think what you may be trying to say is that you probably it's fuel to you, man, to see
Yeah,
someone fucking, keeled over laughing, or maybe because you put yourself, you got balls. I get anxiety for you when I'm like, this motherfucker is walking right through this subway. I know he don't know any of these people. And I didn't know Pepino at the time. Now you got little Pepino walking around with you. And I'm like, the it takes it, man. And I'm happy for you. And even if it's two people on that train or that car that are keeled over laughing because they appreciate this fucking guy,
yeah,
and we all get stuck in that Groundhog Day effect, the 9 to 5, and I hate my life and I hate my job and I hate my companion. We all been there. But to have a guy like you break the mold, whether for 10 minutes or I appreciate you, and I'm glad that when I catch you on my content flow and I'm scrolling, you're a break from you're break from reality,
yeah.
and
Escapism.
it's amazing. Now I've noticed too, it's probably perfect timing because we're moving into political season. I guess I
Yeah.
think you're really hovering on the Trump thing. Is that because? And this is something that I'm so curious about when it comes to all people in your field. When you start to hover around a person or a thing, is it because you're seeing the reaction, or is it just because you got more content, or is it a combination of everything? Like, where are you at with that?
Combination of everything.
Okay.
Reaction. It's never gotten old, and he's the gift that keeps giving.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I did a pilot for the Trump show 6 months ago, but I was worried that I said, am I gonna do Trump every week? He's not president anymore. He might just fade from the headlines. He might just fade away like the other past presidents. Like George W. Bush. You don't hear about him anymore.
Right.
But now, back in the news again. He's never going away. A friend of mine had a good analogy. He goes, "No, he's Michael Jackson. He's Elvis. He's never ever going away." And so he's the gift that keeps giving. Also, it is hella lucrative. The cameos of all the cameos I get, he is the biggest, the most asked for. People who love him want a cameo of Trump. People who hate him want a cameo of Trump. People who love him, who have family members who hate him. Oh, my aunt hates Trump. Can you do Trump? Da 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 da. One guy, this is the weirdest one. One guy asked for a cameo. He goes, "I hate you. I hate Donald Trump. Not me. I hate Donald Trump.
Right.
Can you do a video of Trump convincing me to like him?" So I'm like, sure. I don't know what your motivation behind that would be, but sure. And yeah, Trump definitely, it gets eyeballs, and the podcast has been doing great. It's very early stages, but it's doing so great. All my YouTube shorts that I put up, little clips of it, have been getting a lot of traction. I've been getting subscribers, totally organic, just from people who've never seen me on other platforms. Yeah. And I don't know if you know my story where how I met Trump.
I saw clips of it when you like shook his hand and you did the impersonation with him. I don't know how that came to be though.
Yeah, even more to it than that. And it's really, truly the craziest story. Probably the craziest, most unique story of my life.
Hit me.
The day he came down the escalator and famously announced that he was running, I personally thought it was a publicity stunt. I'd followed the guy for years. I just thought, oh, okay, he's trying to sell something.
Right.
So we're out at the bar that night with a couple comedian friends, and there's a copy of the New York Post there. And it's literally Trump in clown makeup with all his quotes. They said outrageous quotes. The New York Post, who ended up later endorsing him, they're like, this guy is a joke. And this idea, once again, just hit me. I didn't think of it. It literally just came like the feather in Forrest Gump.
Yep.
And whoop, into my brain. And I looked at my buddy Mike, who was sitting across from me. At this point in my life, I'd never gotten a tattoo. I said, dude, what if I got a Trump 2016 tattoo? He just goes, his jaw drops, and he goes, if you get that, I will literally pay for it. So now I'm like, oh my gosh, am I actually going to do this? 10 tequila shots later, me and a whole group of my friends are walking down McDougal Street. The tattoo shop owner is closing shop. It's like 3:50 a.m. Everything in New York closes at 4 a.m. It's 3:50. He's about to lock up the shop. And we're like, no, 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 no. Our buddy here wants a tattoo. They're like, no, come back tomorrow. Okay, we open at 9 a.m. tomorrow. And they're like, no, you don't get it. He wants a Trump 2016 tattoo. The guy goes, ho, 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 ho. This is too good. Opens the gate back up. He calls his tattoo guy, happens to be a Mexican gentleman, who's now already at the subway walking down the steps. He's like, come back. We got one more customer. The guy's like, oh, what about tomorrow? He's like, no, this guy wants a Trump 2016 tattoo. He's like, oh, shit. He comes back. It's in the city, so the tattoos are really expensive. 150 bucks.
Right.
Three of my friends chipped in $50. So I didn't pay a dime. Now I have a Trump 2016 tattoo. Now at this time, this is before...
Where did you put this tattoo?
Right there.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You really did that.
Oh, yeah. And this is before everything became so politically divisive. Nobody at this point thought that he would win even a primary.
Right.
The idea... So you think New Yorkers, God, how much they despise him. But at that time, and still to this day, when people see this tattoo, they're like, what's that? And I explain the story. They're like, that's the funniest thing ever. I've never gotten any hate ever. And I don't hide it with this tattoo because people ask and I just explain. But anyways, back to now, June 2015. Everybody's loving it. Everybody, can I get a picture? Everybody thinks it's so funny. All my show business friends are like, you got to tweet him. You got to tweet him. So I tweeted him. He didn't see it. And speaking of discouraged, I remember I had a job walking dogs at the time in Brooklyn. Wow. 10 dogs at once. And I'm feeling like, man, I got this damn Trump tattoo. He hasn't seen the tweets. And I'm like, and I'm looking at the skyline of Manhattan across the river. And I'm like, I want to be there. I want to be there entertaining people. I don't want to be here in Brooklyn with these freaking dogs. I take out my phone. I'm like, did Trump see my tweet? And he didn't see my tweet, but he was announcing a book signing. He's like, I'm doing a book signing this Tuesday at Trump Tower, 9 a.m. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. I'll be there. He'll be there. The media will be there. My tattoo will be there. This is it. And I walk up to him and I go, Mr. Trump, how you doing? And I remembered from years ago seeing him on the Conan O'Brien show when I was in middle school. And he goes, I don't like tattoos. I hate tattoos. So I remember that for some reason from my literal childhood. I said, Mr. Trump, I know you're not a fan of tattoos, but God, I want to make America great again so bad that I got this tattoo. And he just lit up. He gets up with the biggest smile. He's like, I love this guy. And he goes, look, folks, this guy got a tattoo, and that's a big deal. Okay, and look, I know deals. Look. And this is, I swear to God, this is what he said. He goes, I got to win the election for this kid. He goes, I cannot let this guy down. And then he goes, come here. So now he gets up out of the chair, and he runs over, he goes by all the cameras, and I listen to what he says. I run over to him, and he just looks at me, and he points and goes, get the book. Like, he chastises me almost. So I'm like, yes, Donald, I'm sorry. I run back. I get the book. He's holding the book and pointing at my tattoo. I'll send you the picture of him holding the book, pointing at the tattoo. And he's pointing at the tattoo. So then he shakes my hand. He goes, you're a great guy. Takes off, goes back to keep signing books. I go to walk off. All the media, they're like, wait, don't leave. What's your name? How old are you? What do you do for a living? Oh, you're a comedian. Where do you perform? Da-da-da-da-da. D-d-d-d-d. So then I finally, when they're done with me, I walk off and I bump into Mark Halpern, who he's a guy who's since disappeared off the face of the earth. He was Me Too'd to oblivion, and when the whole Me Too happened. But at the time, this was pre-Me Too. He was still alive in the media, and he's like, so you're a comedian, huh? He goes, you want to do some jokes for our cameras? And I was like, sure. So at the time, Obama was president, so I do my Obama impression. And he goes, can you do a Trump? I'm like, can I do a Trump? I'm like, absolutely. So then I'll never forget this moment. He goes, would you be willing to do that in front of him? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Of course. Of course. And this is what he says to me. He goes, we interviewed him at the Woolman ice skating ring yesterday. He goes, we gave him nice questions that he liked. He goes, when we give him questions he likes, he gives us access. So I'm like, cool. So he walks me back to Trump, and it's true. He was in the middle of a conversation. He goes, "Mr. Trump, the comedian here, he does a little impersonation of you. Would you like to see it?" And Trump goes, "Sure." So he had one camera on Trump, one camera on me, and then he edited it when it aired on television together. And then Trump goes, "Wow, he's better than the pros. He is a pro." And yeah, he goes, "That's really good. That's really good." So, it's just.
Is that the footage that I've seen? Because it's like you guys are. Is that what I've seen online?
That was that same day, but that wasn't all of it.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure it's just a blip of it, but wow, dude. So did that end up like a moment like that? Did you get the kind of response that you were looking for, or was it like, this was great, but I got more work to do? Like, what happened after that? Do you wake up and your fucking Instagram is like blowing up? Like, what happens?
Well, that's a good question. So before we get into all the opportunities I got, I was on page 7, me and Trump on the New York Post. Literally half the page was me and him. The New York Times did a little write-up about it. No photograph, but they did a write-up.
Right.
A little condescending. They're like, "This guy who calls himself Jason Scoop." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I mean, that's my name."
My name.
Correct pronunciation of my last name is a little different, but I pronounce it Scoop, so I changed it to S-C-O-P. It's Polish with a Z, but anyways.
Okay.
Yeah, at that time, oh my gosh, I got invited on like 20 podcasts to talk about it. I got booked on all these different things. It was an opportunity avalanche. And also, when good things happen, it's not just the opportunities that other people give you. When you have that confidence and that shine on you,
right.
I feel like you radiate, and then other things, other things sort of happen. And then it was that was a great time. And now I'm doing what I'm doing, but also I'm a lot more disciplined now, and I'm a lot more regimented now. At the time, I was in my mid-20s. I was drinking with comedians all night. I rarely have a drink now because I'm just so damn focused, especially now that I have the podcast. With the Trump podcast, I spend one day for about 10 minutes jotting down the ideas in a notepad. Then the next day when I'm ready to shoot, I rip all the pages out of the notepad, lay it all out, and then order it. Then I'll film it and then cut it into chunks. And then my friend Eric, another friend that I'm blessed, he's editing it for free for me, so he could just on it and be able to promote himself. And then on top of that, I'm thinking TikTok. And then I'm thinking what I put on TikTok, I know the algorithms now enough.
Right.
The fan base here and there and there. I know what I should post on TikTok, and then I know what I'll put on Instagram. I know 5 TikTok a day, 1 Instagram post a day for the algorithm. And then once a week on YouTube, but also several shorts of little clips of the podcast, so that gets in new subscribers. And it's like, it's a machine. It's a machine now.
It's interesting that you have to, it's just like where I'm at. My passion hobby is just to communicate with people, but I'm not good at, one of the things I'm not doing is doing the shorts and splitting them up. And like, there's so many little, it's the sound bites, like Rogan's and those little, because a lot of people don't have the attention span to do the hour and a half, 2 hour, podcasting, listening. I still do. I enjoy it, but I think you're doing a hell of a job, because it doesn't seem like it's a passion of ours, but we know we need to do it to get that traction. And of course, I have no doubt that, you're going to continue to excel, and the right people will be in the right places, and you'll have people taking that load off of you, so you don't have to worry about cultivating the digital intake of it. But man, that is fucking awesome. Has there ever been any other communications on the behalf of his staff to you, or was it kind of like
that was the only time.
Okay.
I've met many people who are in his orbit since then.
Okay.
I was at a bar in New York, and Giuliani walked by, and I was able to.
I saw that. Yes.
At Rudy, and I mean, regardless of how you feel, because he's even more divisive than Trump. You people feel so strongly about Rudy, and I, just as a kid who was 10 when 9/11 happened, and he was like the 9/11 guy, and then I remember he hosted Saturday Night Live after that, and Lorne Michaels was like, "Rudy, can we be fun? Do we have permission to be funny again?" And then Rudy goes, "Why start now?" So that's sort of the Rudy I remember. And then now
Right.
or whether you like that or don't like that or whatever the hell. He's so freaking iconic. I mean, the guy
Right.
is so iconic, you know. And but either way, you know, when I post that on TikTok, if people don't like it and they're like, "Oh, Rudy, why would you? How could you be with Rudy?" It's like that just feeds the algorithm, so I win either way.
I was going to say it's got to be a unique situation because I have no idea what it's like to place yourself in a position where you're, even like um, meeting Trump and then the post that now and you doing the show and like there's got to be no all press is good press. And there's got to be a lot of people that look at that and they probably so curious to know your stance. And that's your business. I don't want to know your shit. That's your
Right.
business. But it's got to be interesting because those that are so geared to be blue or red or to be, I was actually traveling for the last few months and I was on the West Coast and I learned within less than 5 minutes to stop saying I lived in Florida. So I didn't, and I don't brand myself as with any political stance. And I'm not saying that for the show. I'm fucking chill. I don't care.
Right.
But literally
Well,
just by saying I reside in Florida, it was like a hand would go up to like kill me. And I'm like, no, 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 I just live there.
right,
So
right, right. I
it's in, how do you navigate that like in your personal life? Like let's just say as you're getting more and more attention, do you have I'm just going to use the word naive, the people that may look, for instance, you were at that fair yesterday and let's just say I could see one of the ladies was giving you a little bit of shit. She said, I lived in Connecticut and you're like, we won Connecticut, and you were like, and you could just tell she's literally pretty much treating you like you're Trump. I mean, it's almost
yeah. Hmm?
Are you there?
Yep.
Okay, hold on. Let me see why this went away here. Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
Hear me?
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Awesome. My bad, dude. I have no idea what the hell. It's a new software learning experience. Um, do
All
you
good.
find that to be like, how is the response when like you're out of character? Just someone's like, "Yo, fuck you," and you're like, "Dude, I was just acting." Like,
Well, I think, and there is. I wouldn't say this is by accident. I think I try to play it in a way where, and I almost feel like a magician because you've heard the term one movie, two screens, one movie.
never heard of it. Never heard
So
that saying.
so basically, you'll say that one half of the Democrats will look at something and see
Oh, 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 oh.
so
Okay.
screens one movie. So basically, I've somehow found a way where people who love him love it. People who hate him so much also like what I do. And I think back to when you want to talk about like my personal political stance. I think back of 48 Laws of Power. One of the laws is, I don't know if you've heard of that book by Robert Greene. It's 48 Laws of Power, and one of the laws is commit to no one. And
Mm,
that that doesn't necessarily mean like a relationship, but he's like commit to no one, and he says only a fool rushes to take sides. He goes,
mm,
by appearing neutral, you have control over everyone because both sides compete for your affection, right?
mm.
So
Okay.
basically, when people in the comments, especially on TikTok, argue about Republican, Democrat, I never chime in.
Good.
I never chime in, and they'll go back at hundreds, which is just boosting my algorithm, boosting me, pushing me out to more people, pumping me out to more people. But I never chime in, and um, you know, obviously, everybody. I don't believe there's any independents out there. Everybody, there's definitely crazies, but everybody either leans, for the most part, you lean one way or you lean the other way.
Right, right,
I just think my stuff speaks for itself. You
right,
know, you're a detective. You can see which way my winds are sailing, but
right. Well,
yeah,
I love it. I think what you do is in my opinion, being an avid follower of yours, I enjoy it for what it is, and then I leave it alone. I'm
mm,
not trying to find reasons. See, I think we're so programmed now, and I think there's something to be said about looking for every reason not to take the job, take the companion, buy the car, take time to think, put it into your prayer tank. I'm all about that. But when it comes to humanity, I don't
yeah,
think we're so programmed to look for every reason not to like someone, right? Like, I've noticed this, and I don't want to sound biased towards the best country in the world, so to speak. I love the United States of America, but every time I leave the states, especially if I go somewhere I can't speak the language, there's I have this saying that, like, the minute you're in the line to board the airplane, it won't be that odd for someone in to ask you over for dinner if you didn't have food.
mm,
There seems to be this, and growing up in the States and being a citizen of the United States of America, it feels like we're still just so programmed to be like, I'm a New England Patriots fan.
mm-hmm.
You are a Giants fan. I'm just right. We must not be. We are in the same division. We cannot like each, and it's so high fructose corn syrup way of living. Like, we just look for this division versus, like, you want to watch the game together, right?
Right.
And I'm using the football analogy as a simple way of just getting the point across that. Kudos to you for using a very flammable fucking topic,
Yeah, and it's
and
both sides like. And I'll say this: when it comes to politics, I disengaged from politics when I started when it got to a point where I am this. If you're that, I don't like you. I'm like,
right,
that's crazy.
yep. It happens, man. Especially as we're moving into the political season, man. It's gonna get, and no joke. I couldn't I to break a barrier down. I just stopped saying that I lived in Florida and just started saying I lived on the East Coast, and people just leave it at that.
Right.
And it was this, like, odd. There's no hate for any side. I'm not trying to get into the whole Biggie Tupac bullshit, West Side, East Side. It's just like you're saying, the political scene, and it's always going to be there, and it's divisive. It's something that's embedded into our culture at a very young age. Instead of all getting, one thing I really, I don't know whether to love or hate the guy. I just watch his content too. I know he's just been deplatformed. What's that guy, Steve Tate, something, Adam Tate or something?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought him up, because I was thinking the other day about him, and I said, I love people who just speak their mind. I don't have to even agree with what they're
Right,
saying. Like, I just like colorful figures.
right, right.
Uh, because Andrew Tate, well, first off, I don't agree on anybody being deplatformed for obvious,
I agree with you 100%.
all that. But when it comes to Tate, it's like, I just think it's such a beautiful thing. Once again, whether I agree, because I listened to a lot, at one point he was everywhere. Like, you open
I
TikTok,
know.
hey, Andrew, I'm like, Jesus, this guy is just an explosion. But yeah, he would say some harsh things, but it's like, he's not hurting anyone,
Right.
and he's extreme. I like anybody who goes. I don't want to say goes against the grain, but like people who,
He zooms out, Jason. He
yeah,
zooms out.
he zooms out.
He's
Exactly.
he zooms out, and I'm the same thing. Do I agree with his whole women make me a sandwich and shut the fuck up? No, not necessarily. Like, okay. And I was joking around with on another show I did the other day. We were talking about how Kanye just said, like, I don't fuck with people that are broker than me. Like, that's nice. That's good for you. I don't have that privilege that I got to fuck with people that are. I'm broker than a lot of other people, and I fuck with them. It's okay. I got it. But there's something to be said about like you said, people that speak their mind. I don't agree at all with the
Yeah.
censorship or the deplatforming of the only thing I have no tolerance for on a little caveat is like, and it still happens, is like you see an animal or something being abused. That shit is like that shit, all the stuff that's simple, abuse,
Then
child porn, all that stuff. Like, because then it can get rather cynical, and you get the people on that side that are like, well, then what about, and like, oh, then, let's just chill. You're not supposed to kill people and hurt people. Come on.
right.
But when it comes to speaking your mind, he did say a lot of things, and now I'm seeing it on other people's syndication.
Yeah.
And dude, he said, he goes, the whole system is meant to suppress us, and that's nothing new under the sun with people like you and I that are looking for culture, that are looking for the reason, the purpose. And it's awesome because once again, your content that you're using, though you're portraying it in a comical nature, the hilarity to me is almost it's what it is. I mean, you're bringing light to such a darkly dim scene anyways. Like, we don't know shit. We're never going to know shit. In my opinion, not to sound fucking conspiracy theory, I think it's all programmed anyway. You know what I mean? Like,
1,000%.
anytime you get these people that are so sold out about anything, I don't care what it is, and it's
Right.
not in your control, you're never going to change the ingredients of Coca-Cola. It's Coca-Cola. Like, don't drink it. Don't try to change the fucking world on what a conglomerate's doing. It's not, unless you become Elon Musk and you got fuck you money, then you could start making changes. The guy's sending up spaceships and he's getting paid to do it now. And I believe in you, and I will support you. But don't come at me yelling at me that I can't drink Coca-Cola because there's a lot of sugar in it. What do you want me to do? Let me be me and you do you. But I once again, I envy your willingness to go against the grain, because your content, once again, I think you found, not think, it's happening. You found a way to bring joy and hilarity to such a not funny thing. Well, guys like you and I think it's funny to this day. I see people standing behind any type of pulpit or podium, and I'm like, why are you doing this? Why are you really doing this? Like, I have this problem with self-appointed fucking leadership. I'm like, I don't want to be the captain of 4 soccer teams. It's fucking annoying. You got the phone calls to this, the organization, the teams that we're going to play. Is it the rain? Is that, why do you want this headache? And I've noticed that self-appointed leadership is usually the guys that didn't get picked on the team when they were in school, right? And I was one of those guys, but I'm also not out there trying to now form a team without a team. And it's weird. So I think you're headed for, I can't wait to see how you progress, irregardless of success. But it's going to be interesting to see how you navigate, because it's without a doubt, you're going to start being around and dining at tables with some really fucking influential people. And it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, we've seen it all before. I'm sure all of your greats that you looked up to, Chappelle's one of them, that had this break away, like that sucked him dry. And then for him to ostracize himself from society and then resurrect himself. I think you are going into it now with that mindset of, like, do you see yourself ever becoming, like, going towards the Hollywood scene, or will you be like, go fuck yourself, I'm staying my way? Like, it's going to be interesting, because I think you're going to start having a lot of those phone calls.
That's a great question. Because for a while I was thinking, I don't need that. I don't want that. Look at what I'm building. But there is a part of me that started from when I was a little child, watching Jim Carrey and Robin Williams and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my thought on that. I do not want to, that's not on my vision board. That's not, I need Hollywood, I want to star in films. I'm working on my thing, but there's a part of my brain that says, I might be able to just end up there. It's not on my vision board.
Right.
I don't have it written on my thing. I'm like, damn, I'm making a living. I'm getting fans. I'm going out there. I'm performing live. I'm building this beautiful thing, and it's only getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Could I end up, on the red carpet at the Emmys, Oscar, maybe? But boy, I'm a gambler at heart. Part of the reason why I'm so funny is I like to be a rabble rouser, like you see. I'm on the subway. I'm here. I'm there. I like to see where could this end up?
Mm-hmm.
My girlfriend, she's very list oriented, and she's like, Jason, you need to lists. And she has her breakfast at 9, then 9:05, go to the bathroom. She goes, I blow my nose twice a day. Trust me, I never have boogers in my nose and everything. Then you have, to bring up actually Trump again, he does have his book, Art of the Deal. Very interesting thing in his book. He goes, people would be shocked to learn that I'm not too tightly budgeted. My time, he goes, I play it loose. He goes, I have papers all over my desk. I make phone calls. I take phone calls. He goes, because I find people who are too tightly regimented, it's harder for them to be creative.
Mm.
So multiple cylinders up here, but yeah. And look, I love Los Angeles. The couple TV things I've done, I'll tell you this. There is nothing more intoxicating than even just dipping your pinky toe in the pool of that Hollywood stuff.
I can imagine.
I did a pilot with Wanda Sykes. My most Hollywood day of my life was I was auditioned out here for this Wanda Sykes show. They wanted, one of the parts of the audition was, tell us a story about yourself. I'm sitting there with Wanda Sykes on Zoom, like I'm talking to you right now. I tell her the Trump story. She's dying laughing, and she hates Trump.
All right.
Me on the show. I go out there. It was called Nasty Women. Once again, a whole television show because Donald Trump called Hillary nasty women. They create a show. I get booked on it. It was a female-centric sketch show. So it was a bunch of women and me and one other guy, black guy, friend of mine, comedian friend of mine, Matt Richards. So we were the two males with all these women. We shoot all day. We shoot the pilot. Unfortunately, they were trying to get it on VH1, MTV. Didn't get picked up, but that's okay. I got a nice little paycheck.
Yep.
That night, I ended up, because I was out there, I made some phone calls. I got booked on a show at the Hollywood Improv. Dave Chappelle was there. It was such a Hollywood night.
Wow.
And we were on our lunch break, and I grew up watching Wanda Sykes with my mother, with my grandmother, dying laughing. Now I'm on my lunch break with her, and we're both on the buffet line. We both go for the chicken, so it's like, yeah, I could totally see how people, but Hollywood is also like, it's a very crazy place, but I love it out there. I love it. I'm a New York guy through and through. I'm an East Coast guy through and through. California, I don't know how much time you spent out there, but boy, is it different. But
I was out there long enough to say I love everyone out there. But I've come to the conclusion in my own opinion, why everyone's so they're so angry because they got nowhere to go except Hawaii or fucking Arizona. I mean, I just joked with all of them because I was out there for like net 60 plus days, living amongst them in their community, all the way up to Seattle, and look, they're all great people, very lucrative folk for the most part. Weather's beautiful, all the things. But see, to me, being an East Coast guy myself, I love the accessibility of getting on an aeroplane and being either over the pond or being in the Caribbean or going up north to see, I grew up in New England, so I love that I can go up. When you're Cali or Seattle, you really got nowhere to go. It's Alaska, Hawaii, or Vegas. And I think it wears on them. And also too, man, and this is no hate against anybody out there, but there's still such that scene of, what kind of keys are you throwing down on the bar table? Like what are you driving? What are you doing? And as I'm getting older, I'm very comfortable with being comfortable. I'm thank God my lifestyle doesn't require me to be in fancy clothes and things. And I think there's a time and place for it. But being a beach boy, I literally have like 2 shirts and a pair of shorts. I like to keep it simple. And with that being said, it's not a fan favorite when you're with the Gucci folk, and there's that scene out there. But I think it's you got this great mindset because I think you're going to always, like, for instance, the political scene, or even if you do go Hollywood again, you're going to use it. It won't use you.
Yeah. One thing I could say is, and I've had this since high school, I was the guy, I was friends with the jocks. I'm friends with the drama club kids. I'm friends with smoking the cigarettes in the bathroom. I'm friends with the nerds, the band kids,
Right.
I'm a chameleon in a way where I could really get along with anyone. And another thing I hate about politics, and this is on the Republican side, when people bash, they're like, the coasts, New York. It's like, yes, yeah, there are problems here, but New York and California, the weather's great. New York is, I said before, it's magical, man. It's a magical place. like, once again, it goes back to when you, because of the red and the blue, when you start to not see things for what it is, you know? And one other thing I wanted to say, this was a thought from like a couple minutes ago. Andrew Tate.
Mm.
People who hate him, they're going to think, well, why was he so popular? Clearly his message was resonating and it had an
Yeah.
audience. Like, because there's this onslaught, there's this war on masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yes, was he like a cartoonish, sort of like Trump, just a cartoonish opposing
Right.
view? Yeah, but people like cartoons.
Right.
And like, I just feel like young boys growing up, it's like all of society is like, if you're a male, you suck. And it's like, what is this? Well, this is kind of like sexism. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He liked to break once again. I'm sure he was tapping into something that was bringing in the views,
Yeah.
and that's what then a guy like him I'd love to have a chat with to get to know on a personal level and say, look, either in public or behind the scenes in the green room throwing a whiskey back, are you really that way, or are you just fucking doing it for views? And
It's,
either way, I would support him. I
yeah,
would be like, dude, I'm once again, I never to this day, and this isn't a crowd favorite either, and I don't get in this type of dialogue in my immediate town and stuff, and I chuckle for those that lose sleep over shit like this, but like the whole Cosby thing too, remember all that? And I'm like,
yeah,
and to this day, if I'm like really been a while and I'm in a rut, and you put on Cosby's one of those stanzas back in the day where the red background and he does
yeah,
that to me is like, I get goosebumps just thinking about that fucking skit. I mean, that whole performance.
yeah,
I don't care, not to sound unpassionate towards those that were hurt, but I don't want to say I don't care, but it wasn't. I'm not watching him for what he's doing in his private life. Now,
yeah,
granted, what he ended up doing, or was he guilty? Was he not? But the point of saying all that is same thing with Michael Jackson, all the way down to. I mean, if you really think about it, if you want to do homework on Michael Jordan, you could find 100,000 reasons why you don't like him either.
right,
He did
right.
his job. I was watching a basketball game. I grew up being who wasn't in the 90s a Jordan fan. I don't care if he's a gambler. I don't care. Now, granted, if he hurt somebody on purpose physically, that's going to be it's tough, but it didn't affect me personally, and I'm not going to not watch the basketball game. Like there's this. So I appreciate your outlook and view, even on whether it's Tate or this, because same thing. One of the scariest things, and that's what he's preaching, that I get extracts from it when I see him now resurrect himself on somebody else's podcast or something. He said, I mean, and not even to advocate for anyone, but what they even did to Trump is fucked up. I don't care whether he's Trump or anyone. Like how can you just take someone off because
Yeah,
they're speaking? It's a
yeah,
scary thing, and that's what Tate is kind of, I think, saying is that it doesn't like watch the system is keeping us angry at each other so that we don't zoom out. So
right. And
that
people are forgetting right is right, wrong is wrong.
that's
Right
it.
is wrong. If you don't want it to happen to you, don't cheer it happening to Trump. Also, you know, the like on the liberal side, they're like, don't fat shame, don't this. Trump's a fat
Yeah,
fuc.
yeah, I
Trump,
know the double standard.
and how many times did they talk about his skin color? He's
Yeah.
orange, orange. It's like, where you didn't want to judge people off their skin. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. So many people are just full of shit. You know
Well,
what
I
I mean?
think I think what's happening. I have hope in humanity. I was saying this the other day. Like I can be a cynical, neurotic motherfucker. Don't get me wrong. But when it comes to real humanity, like today, I'm super blessed. I can go out and everyone I bump into, not only will I probably know them, but I'll get to know them because of my small immediate beach town now. And you being in a city, you may not be able to get to know anyone, but no one's really probably got a gun to your forehead, in theory, right? Like, but there's still those old remnants of like, oh man, New York, don't take that alley. Now I'm talking about that's coming from a naive perspective. I remember growing up when we were really young and like New York was like, I remember when I first started going to New York, I was only 17, 18 at the time.
Yeah.
And I was going by myself to see friends that had moved from here up there. So it wasn't even like I was going to see the city guys and we were like, holy shit. And there's still that. I remember when I went to Central America for the first time, the immediate crew people are like, don't get cut up into pieces. And then you get there and you're like, they're the most amazing people in the world. So it's once again, let's just call it the system that keeps you suppressed so that you're angry. And look, all the greats are talking about it. Rogan talks about it constantly. I'm actually surprised Rogan hasn't been deplatformed. But
Deplatform.
I think that there's something, once you start hearing about a guy making 10, 15, $20 million contracts. I love Rogan. I think Rogan's like one of my heroes. I started my show because of Rogan. My show used to be a sit down one, and that was the whole. I love that, like, holy shit. And I've been told, and I was blessed with having good dialogue. But see, to me, once you start making that kind of money, someone's in your corner that you got to keep happy at that point. And I mean what I say, like saying like I don't know anymore if we're getting like a watered down version or if it's real anymore. But the disruptors of there, I give him credit for even during the pandemic and not being a fucking pusher of anything, an
Yeah.
advocate for pro or against the vaccine, just being an educator. And I love that through your content and through your personality personally, like behind the scenes, you have this wonderful fucking demeanor about you that it doesn't seem that you're trying to push an agenda. You just want people to fucking laugh, you
Yeah.
know?
It's
But
about the
you're dancing in a fucking on thin ice, and I love it because when you're the political arena it's got to be unique. One of the things I've always wondered is that when you do meet, like when you met Trump, or let's just say you meet like a hardcore Trumper or this, are they looking for you to say like yeah, and if you don't, you know what I mean? Like, is it how, has someone ever just point blank said like, what did you vote for? Like, you know what I mean? Or is it you able to navigate away from that?
I would say I navigate away from it pretty well. And plus, if I'm talking to a complete stranger, a lot of times you just yes them to death. Like if I was
Yeah, yeah.
oh yeah, 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 you just yes them to,
I do
yeah,
the same thing now, especially when I'm traveling. It's not worth it, even if it. The only thing I won't agree with, once again, is like kicking a puppy. That I'll
yeah,
stand up for. But if people are like, "Man, I hate burritos," I'm like, "Me too, me too, me too, me too." Those burritos, burn them all down because it's not even worth getting an
right,
argument in an airport terminal about something so ludicrous. But
exactly.
dude, this has fucking been great. I knew it was going to be awesome. You got a great personality. I already know, and I'm saying this as a peer of yours, not a superior. I'm proud as fuck of you. You got this energy, and it feels like too, man. You're trying to. I love how much you appreciate those that are loving on you. You know what I mean? You don't come off whatsoever like a lot of guys as they start to break that success barrier. I feel like can get very egotistical and condescending and well, I paid you your money, leave me alone. You have this really empathetic, sympathetic way of like kind of, hey, let's have fun, let's enjoy this, and you're breaking kind of some of maybe your neurotic ways of like, Steve, I said we got to be at the thing,
Yeah,
and he's like, hey man, look, I want to ride my bike, and I'm proud of you to be able to be loose a little bit because it's
yeah,
like you said in Trump's book, you are an artist, and I'm not giving you no advice. You're doing great, but I've noticed as I'm getting older and kissing 40, it's life just isn't that serious. So if something's not working out or this, just stay true to yourself with that art that you have. You're such an artist, and there's nothing. Don't color inside the lines.
right.
You know, you're.
And I've seen egos destroy people.
Oh yeah,
I've seen them lose opportunities because of it. And like you said, it's not that serious. And I got to tell you, my biggest inspiration is Norm Macdonald.
yes. Rest in
I
peace.
I was so lucky to have been able to work with him.
Wow.
Yeah, I hosted some shows for him at Caroline's on Broadway, and he said to me, you know, he goes, what you got, he goes, is great. What a lot of these young guys don't have is they want to go up there and they want to be the smart guy. A lot of young comedians, he goes, they want to go up on stage and be the smart guy. He goes, but your job is to be funny. He goes, the best comedians in the world are the smartest guys in the room, but they play it down a little bit. He goes, like David
Ooh.
than anybody, but he played it down. And Norm, even before he passed away, I thought about for at least once a day about how thankful I was to have that opportunity and to just be around. I thought about I studied him like a hawk, as somebody who does impressions, I study. And Norm would turn everything into a joke. Like he the guy was like a wizard. He was like Yoda. And I guess at the time he had cancer. So when you know you're terminally ill, although I do
Right.
believed he could beat it, but you know, he was just so zen, like Yoda, like Star Wars Jedi, like, and
Right.
everything was funny. He turned everything funny. Like everything. Like at one point we were in between shows. This just lit up my soul. We were in between shows, and a woman who I guess was a friend of his or knew maybe the staff there was able to get into the green room. So he said she could come in, but she had a friend with her. So this guy was like a friend of the friend who's in the green room. And comedians in between shows, you want to be focused on your
Right.
set list.
I can imagine.
So this guy's like, well, I'm actually a documentary filmmaker
Oh boy.
on a film about the history of anti-Semitism. And, it goes back to da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So I'm standing by the door. I look over at Norm, and Norm is leaning in. He's going like this. He's like, He's like shaking his head. He seems like he's so invested. And perhaps he was, perhaps he wasn't. But he seemed so invested on what this guy was saying. So then the guy gets through his spiel. It went on for a minute. Then he left. And I'm sitting on the couch now, and Norm is like looking in the mirror, kind of getting his notes together, like kind of like putting himself together. And he's like, he's like, I got to focus on my list here. I have to listen to that guy talk about fucking Jews for 20 minutes. Like,
oh man.
In the moment, he was like, oh, wow. Oh, yeah. And then he's like, I got to get my jokes together. I had to listen to that guy talk about fucking Jews for 20 minutes. That's what he had. He could just turn anything. I mean, like he would the wall, the fucking ceiling, everything.
Right. Dude, he to me, that's one of those. I'm jealous of those. I feel like he was such an underrated. And a lot of it, I think, had to do with the era that we were growing up with. Like, for instance, for a guy like me or you to appreciate Eddie Murphy, you got to look for it. You're not going to, you got to know. It's like almost like saying you like Biggie, but don't like, the Eazy-E's and like all that. You gotta give the credit because that's where it came from. But with Norm, he was so, in my opinion, he just never became he was never I don't know how to say it, but like he wasn't Billboard, and I know in his immediate culture he was respected. He was a god amongst the comedians, and you saw that even amongst his death.
I think the reason for that is because he just didn't he gave a fuck, but he didn't give a fuck.
Is that what it was?
I think that's what it was. I think, he had a gambling problem. He had a gambling.
Okay.
And I think, so he was addicted to the rush, the thrill. And I think he was also addicted to, if he was on a late night show, let's call out the network executive.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Don Ohlmeyer, the guy who was, I guess, president of NBC, was friends with O.J. Simpson. And he famously kept telling him, hey, ease back on the O.J. jokes. That's my buddy. And he just kept going even harder and harder and harder. So he got fired. So I think some of that was his own doing. But,
he was like he's a real rock and roller. He didn't care.
Yeah.
He was like, fuck you. I'm playing that. He was a Kurt Cobain of his time. Right?
And this is back then when all he had was the networks.
Right.
And
yeah. And he still surfaced. So that's to be. I just watched a mini little documentary on Chris Farley and once again, it's that. Oh, there's a whole new series, by the way. Vice. I'm sure you've heard of it. Vice is doing like a whole series on just comedians and their life, and it's about a 45-minute to an hour show. If you haven't seen it yet, it's fucking stupendous, dude. And it's unfortunately very dark because it's showing you the real life of some of these comedians that had to get breakthrough. They had to sell their soul, and I mean, they knew that, but we didn't know that. Now, thank God, guys like you that are up and coming, I think you don't have to sell too much of your fucking soul to get awareness, because guys like me, I don't care if I don't see the NBC stamp or the fucking SNL stamp. Yes, I want that for you, but it's not like I don't take you less seriously because it's like, oh, this guy doesn't have 10 billion views. we're okay with that. You know, like I think good people now, real content consumers, we don't need to see, we all love the Joe Rogan effect. Don't get me wrong. We all strive for the 10 billion views, want to be there too. But it doesn't mean that the content's less valuable or
Yeah.
enjoyable. And but back then, like you said, for the Norms and the Eddie Murphys and all those guys to have surfaced through a syndication and still be raw, that's why I think they're gods of their time. And
Oh,
but that's incredible that you got to meet and chill with him. But yeah, he's just one of those guys that was so real and raw, and it wasn't beautiful. You know, I loved that about him. He wasn't the sex craving. He wasn't women weren't throwing the panties on the stage, so to speak. And I like guys like that are just, it's his art was what was so jaw dropping in his performance. But that's incredible that you got to meet him and
yeah.
work with him. But what's if you want, what's going on the horizon that I could plug for you? Do you have like, are you kind of like, I know you probably have premeditated things that you're doing when you're hitting the street. You don't really announce that shit though, right? You don't say like, yo, I'm going to be on 9th and 3rd tomorrow. Like, okay.
No, I know. It's funny because people were just commenting that street festival is lasting all week, and somebody just was, when are you here next? And I was like, well, I don't want to ruin the element of surprise.
Right.
I would just say to the audience, check out the Donald J. Trump podcast.
Okay.
Follow my Instagram. For the most part, if I'm doing live gigs, I'll post those in my Instagram stories.
Okay.
And TikTok at Jason Scoop Comedy.
Fucking love it. So you don't have anything right now, like a show or anything on the horizon as of right now? Just
I have a list of stuff, but it's in the phone, which I'm filming.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, if you remember, what I'll be doing is I'll with this new software, I'll be recording it and then posting it at a later date within a couple days of here, so it's fresh. But send me anything that's pertinent that may be time sensitive. Send me it, and I'll add that in the link. But dude, I can't thank you enough for being so receptive. I reached out to you originally back in the day, and then I think, COVID and this and that. And originally I wanted to sit down with you, but now I'd rather have this than nothing, So
Sure.
I appreciate this. The energy was fucking great. You a great way to start a day. And I can't tell you, I have no doubt you're going to continue to explode. And the podcast thing is fucking hilarious. I've been watching that, and kudos to you, man. It's a tough scene to break through, and I feel like you're doing it, and I'm proud of you, and I envy you, and I wish you nothing but fucking success and more hilarity. And anything I can ever do to support you too, man, as you grow, digitally, anything I can do, I'd love to help you out. You got a great squad. Maybe one of these days too. I haven't been up north in a while, but if I end up there, I'm supposed to be going to New England soon to see my cousin.
Okay. Or maybe there. What part of Florida?
I live in a small rinky-dink beach town called Flagler Beach, Florida. Okay, so we're this barrier island. There's actually a woman that I'd love to put you in touch with. She's the only one that's pioneering a comedy scene. Her name's Christy B, and she's just trying to get. She's been doing it for a handful of years now. It's a tough scene, as you can imagine, because she's an act herself, but she's bringing in acts. And she brought who's the Night at the Roxbury guy?
Oh, Chris Kattan.
Chris Kattan. She's brought a couple other guys, and she's trying to get. She's the only one in my area that's doing it because we're a small beach town. But I know you've heard of Daytona Beach.
Oh yeah.
So I'm 20, 30 minutes north of Daytona Beach. And St. Augustine's actually bringing in a ton of new talent, even musically. It's becoming a destination for a lot of good art. But if you ever think or plan on coming anywhere near around here, you got my treat. I'll show you around, and I'd love to. It's chill as shit, especially going into the winter. If you need to break away for a couple of days, let me know. But
yeah, love Florida.
Well, listen, man, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I'll let you know when I go to post this, but I can't thank you enough, man. This was a fucking awesome experience with you.
Hell yeah, you got it. And I'll send you any live gigs that you could put in the credits or something.
Okay.
Cool.
Awesome, man. Well, look, and I'll as soon as it posts, I'll send you all the links and whatnot. But I hope you enjoyed it too, man. I love talking with you.
Very much. This is definitely one that I'm going to send to people. And yeah, I had a wonderful time.
All right, brother. Well, listen, man, I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely.
All
Take care.
right.